Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I have a very special guest. Today I have finally gotten Quincy Larson from freeCodeCamp on here, and I know that some of you are thinking, "Wait a minute, John, are you going back to programming related stuff?" And the answer is no and yes. So, so Quincy is the founder of freeCodeCamp. A lot of you have been telling me you got to get this dude on. You got to talk to Quincy. He's a really cool guy. He follows your stuff and you've been talking about freeCodeCamp. So I thought, you know what? Let's talk about this. Let's talk to Quincy. I know a lot of you are still programmers out there. Some of you aren't. That's still cool because this is also an entrepreneurship story. Because Quincy's done some pretty amazing things, and I've been following him in freeCodeCamp for a while, and I think it's just a really interesting story. So I just did an interview with Quincy on his channel, and now he's coming on here, and so thanks for joining me, Quincy.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your story. Like, what is freeCodeCamp, and how did you like come to find this?
Yeah, so I was a school director and a teacher for many years, and I at one point wanted to help my teachers and my administrators at the school be able to be more productive. And that's when I kind of stumbled upon programming as a tool for making people more productive within our office, within our school. So I just picked up a few basic tools, auto hotkey, Visual Basic, just Googled around a lot, cobbled stuff together. And that's when I kind of put it to immediate use, learning just in time, so that I could help build out some systems that would get our teachers to be less chained to their desks so they could actually go out and interact with the students more. And it worked great. Like, all the students loved our school after that because they were able to spend so much time with the teachers that the teachers were previously spending just basically doing data entry. And that's when I realized, wow, like, even with my cursory knowledge of programming, I can go out and I can make a big difference in an organization. And there's nothing special about me. I'm just some dude sitting in an office running a school. I could probably help a lot more people if more people knew how to code. So that set me down the multi-year journey to what would eventually become freeCodeCamp. And freeCodeCamp is a free, open source, nonprofit place that you can go and you can learn to code. And we have a massive curriculum that you can work through. We have developer certifications you can earn by completing projects. And most importantly, we have a huge community of millions of people who are learning to code together, whom you can interact with, whom you can ask for help if you get stuck, and whom you can go and hang out with in person through thousands of study groups around the world.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that you said that. It's so interesting that you talked about the idea that like programming could just make you more productive. Like, you could automate things, and I think a lot of people don't see that in the like, everyone should learn some kind of programming skills. Like, it's almost like every single job, like even just knowing to do like you said, just a little bit of VBA scripting or auto hotkey or something like that. You can automate like a large portion of jobs that are out there that people are doing manually. So that's really cool.
There's so much low-hanging fruit. And so what I did with freeCodeCamp, the initial goal was just to get the low-hanging fruit all together in a single cohesive curriculum that people could work through to learn some of these skills. And it's since evolved thanks to the contributions from thousands of open source contributors. And now the curriculum is basically enough to get you from not knowing how to program at all to being able to go out and get your first developer job. And I see, a first developer job is a great way to kind of learn on somebody else's dime and gradually ramp up your skills to the point that you could potentially launch your own project, start your own company, do freelance work, or just go out and get an even better job. Because more and more of the jobs out there require programming, and developers in San Francisco generally make more than finance people on Wall Street now. So it's become a very reliable way to make money.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't have to be as sleazy either.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, programming for all the issues we have with diversity in programming, we're like working really hard to fix those,
Yeah.
and organizations are trying really hard, and there are a lot of great educational initiatives to try to bring more people in and really make this as level of a playing field as we can.
Yeah, yeah, it's good, and that's the thing is like, I mean, I think that, and especially I love what you're doing with CodeCamp is you're making this accessible, right? It's like it kind of comes to the point where it's like that you don't have to have that victim mindset because you've got it, like there it is, and it's free, and here you go, and other people have done this, so why can't you, right? It's so it's good. I think that's really good, and like you said, in this, I think this community, it's kind of funny because we have a lot of kind of political things, but if you look at some of the other environments in the world, it's been business and finance and sales and marketing. Wow, we're like light years ahead of as far as diversity and whatnot. So it's kind of interesting. It just depends on what pond you play in, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
And
tell me,
there's still
okay.
a ton we need to do in terms of inclusiveness, and we're getting there, but it's going to be a multi-decade effort, realistically.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I like what you're doing, is because I think that one of the fundamental things is just making things just giving people the tools, and if you give them the tools, right, then they have the ability. Then then there's no gatekeeper like in this case. So tell me, like with freeCodeCamp. So a lot of people, okay, so I get a huge resistance from. I used to get from developers on my channel, especially seasoned developers, and they say, "Oh, you can't just go to a code camp or or like learn this on your own, like, and think that you're going to become a developer." Like I see these kids that come out of code camps and whatnot, and are self-taught, and they think they can code, but they just know some little stuff. They're not a real developer. What do you think about that?
Well, I can understand that people take a certain pride in their craftsmanship, and somebody who's spent their entire life programming. I could understand how maybe they feel a little bit defensive about the prospect of someone who has significantly less experience than them coming
Right.
in, and the thing I would emphasize is, there is a wide range of jobs in software
Right.
development, and whether you're going to be architecting, complicated systems. I mean, that's one thing, but a lot of jobs just involve, getting a WordPress instance working and configuring it properly. A lot of work involves going in and doing, more minor changes, bug fixes, to less complicated systems. Back-end development is getting easier in many respects, with all these great breakthroughs in DevOps and containerization and things like that. Even you can orchestrate a data center using open source tools that are getting more and more accessible. So there will always be people who learned to code using lower level languages, and maybe feel like everybody should learn that stuff. But in practice, what employers are looking for is mostly working with scripting languages and working with, tools that are a little more accessible.
Mm.
So, I definitely think, like, if you have a computer science degree from MIT and you've worked at Google and you've worked at Facebook and you published a lot of papers in academic journals and things like that, you're going to be able to have a great many career options. You don't need to feel threatened by the millions of developers who are coming into the field from a self-taught path,
Right.
or through a an intensive coding program, or through a self-paced online learning platform like freeCodeCamp.org, for example. So I would just encourage you all, don't feel threatened by these people. The field is opening up. There are more developer jobs than ever, and instead of trying to stay away from these new people coming into the field, I'd encourage you to help them come in, because a rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly.
And the more organizations we can get to move their old dated processes, you look at how a lot of banks work, a lot of hospitals, a lot of governments, there's so much room for improvement. There's so much work that needs to be done. please don't have a scarcity mindset where we're fighting over work. There's too much work.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, I think that's the right attitude to have, because it's and it's interesting too, right? I mean, the flip side of it too is like you've got the Google MIT engineer, that has this very great computer science background and can architect an amazing system, but then you've got like, Facebook and Twitter and WordPress and how they started, and they're all like little PHP, like someone who didn't really know what they're doing kind of, and then, they're the big companies. So I think there's some, like you just have to have the basic skill set, and it's amazing what you can do. But so many people want to have they want to live in this perfection, right? And perfection is not always the necessary thing, right? It's like, again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't learn your craft, but
I mean, there's tons of room in semiconductor engineering if you really want to get super graceful and write the most elegant inner loop that is possibly imaginable. There are tons of opportunities in that as well, and those will probably remain for some time to come. But you're right. Like Facebook was started by some guy in his dorm room using PHP and MySQL. Right? Yeah. He just used like off the shelf tools, and he built $600 billion company, $700 billion company. I don't know what the market cap is today.
Yeah.
But the point is, grabbing ubiquitous tools and using them can lead to staggering results.
So tell me, I think one of the things that I've always faced, especially as I've been coaching developers, is that I get this the perpetual beginner, right? The person that's I'm like, how long have you been learning programming? They're like, 5 years. And it's like, well, but I'm not quite there yet, right? And so the people that you see, because obviously you see a lot of people pass through freeCodeCamp and actually go and get a job. What is the thing that makes them actually succeed and progress and get there versus the people that just kind of are just they're like the the 50-year-old college student that's been there, just lives in the dorm and just is never ready for the real world. What is the thing that actually gets them out there and makes them successful?
Right. Well, demographically, there's no real model, if you will. The average age of somebody who uses freeCodeCamp is about 30. And they're distributed all around the world. About a quarter of the people who use freeCodeCamp are women, and we're working to get more and more women into software development. I would say the main thing is just, personality wise, and it's not innate personality, it's decided personality. It's deciding what they want to do, making a goal, sticking with it. It doesn't matter if you've kind of languished in middle management for 10, 15 years. I meet people all the time who when I was in Melbourne last week, and I talked to a guy who was a barista for 10 years.
Yeah.
And now he's, making 70, 80K a year as a software engineer. And
from pouring Java to writing Java.
Exactly. and it really doesn't matter your background. If you can do the work, work is out there waiting for people to do it. So it just becomes a question of, how do you get to the state where you can do the work? And then also, of course, how do you put yourself out there and actually get the job? But I would say psychographically, the people who tend to succeed are people who don't have, who aren't trying to tackle a whole bunch of different things simultaneously. They're not like, oh, I'm gonna start my own business, and I'm gonna get my marriage straightened out, and I'm gonna, like if you're jumping on a whole lot of different goals, or if you're pursuing a whole lot of different languages and technologies all at the same time, you're probably not going to succeed in any one of those things. But if you have a laser focus on accomplishing a very specific thing, and you get into a good rhythm, then you're likely to succeed. So the things that I notice consistently people who succeed do, they code every single day, or if they take a day off, it's just like a special vacation day. But on their default day involves 30 minutes or more of coding just to keep their skills moving forward and keep their momentum. And the second thing is they always hang out with other people who are learning to code or who are working as developers, because so much of who you are is wrapped up in whom you hang out with. And, you get so much motivation from hanging out with people who have similar goals to you, and not just, online. Ideally, you go to communities in your town. You've got a hack night, you've got a hackathon, you've got tech talks, you've got some sort of meetup in your town, and you hang out with those people. That makes all the difference. It's regular. It's very frequent that I go to like a place like Toronto, and I just meet a dozen, 2 dozen people who've worked through freeCodeCamp. Maybe they've also done some other online courses. Maybe they've attended a coding boot camp, but they're working as developers now. And they're a big part of, there's this kind of core community. And then there are a lot of other people kind of swirling around the community. They're gradually kind of becoming a more core part of it. If you think about it in that way, that you get a critical mass in a community, and then you have this gravity that pulls more and more people. Success begets success. The people around you who succeed in getting jobs, they're the people who are going to refer you to new opportunities. They're the people who are going to say, I don't have enough bandwidth to take on this new freelance contract, but you seem like you can handle it. Here you go. I'll refer it to you.
Yeah.
So, building your network is absolutely vital.
That's a really good piece of advice. It's interesting too. I think one thing that happens is that like you see someone else do it, and you're like, well, if Joe can get a job making $100,000 a year, I can, like, I know more than Joe. I know I'm at least as good as Joe. Like I can do this. And it's like that reality that, and when people live in isolation, they don't realize that, and they don't get that experience. So that's cool. That's why I like the community aspect. We started adding a community aspect to Simple Programmer now, where we have like a membership forum, and that's been pretty cool. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thrilled to hear that you've added the community feature.
So tell me about the business model. What is the business model of freeCodeCamp? How do you guys make money? How do you keep the lights on?
Sure. We're a donor-supported nonprofit. We're technically a public charity. Nobody owns freeCodeCamp. Even I don't have any ownership stake in it. I'm on the board of directors, and I, having created it initially and gotten it up to a critical mass, I'm involved day to day. Like I basically work 7 days a week on freeCodeCamp, and we make 100% of our money through donations.
Wow.
We have about 4,500 people who donate to freeCodeCamp every month, and we use those resources to pay for servers, to pay for payroll for developers who build on freeCodeCamp full time, to pay for various services and things like that. Right now we're basically at a break-even point, and as we get more and more donations, we'll be able to do more and more exciting stuff with the platform and the community. But the entire platform is open source, and anybody can contribute to it. And I would say a bulk of things that get done to make freeCodeCamp better are done by volunteer contributors.
Wow.
So that's how we're able to be, like, we are a very small organization. You look at Khan Academy, you look at code.org. These are wonderful organizations that have huge footprints, but they also have huge amounts of funding.
Right.
Well, we can achieve, a big chunk of what they achieve just through leveraging the amazing developer community out there, and all the volunteer contributors who are willing to close pull requests and open issues and create articles and create videos and other compelling things that we can share with the community.
That's really cool. That's amazing. That's that you've been able to do that and build something that big off of the backs of donors, not off of having to sell something. And not that there's anything wrong with selling. Obviously, my audience knows that I'm a salesperson and marketer, but at the same time, it's like, to some degree, you have to really like question when someone's selling you something. You have to question, can you trust it, right? I mean, that's the thing. Is like, as having this business online, my job is to build trust. Like, if people don't trust me, they're not going to buy from me. Whereas, I think it's kind of cool, like, with CodeCamp, it's like, and I'm happy to promote it, and it's really an easy thing for me to promote, because there's no catch here. There's no, like, it's donor supported, it's free, it's helping people. There's no catch-22. So that's really cool. That's really refreshing to have something like that. So tell me then, how do you make money? How do you, like, do you work full time? Do you take a salary from freeCodeCamp? Do you have a different job or a secondary business that you spin off of that? What's your
Yeah, so we have a board of directors, and I probably put like about $120,000 into freeCodeCamp during the initial few years, just
Mhm.
paying for servers and other costs, hiring people to help me out. So currently, the board like voted on my salary, and it's not like a ton of money; it's like $5,000 a month, but it's enough for me to provide for my family here in Oklahoma City, which is a very inexpensive place to live, and that'll probably gradually go up. But I'm not going to be, making Jeff Bezos money or anything like that. The goal is just for me to make enough that I can continue focusing on freeCodeCamp without making any major personal sacrifices. Certainly I'm making less than I was making as a school director. I'm making less than I was making as a software engineer, but I'm much happier because I talk to people every day. If you go to Twitter and you just search freeCodeCamp, you'll see all these people tweeting that they got this developer certification, that they got a job, just constantly. And like that is worth so much more than money to me. But that said, there is the economic reality that you can't survive on goodwill alone.
exactly?
And so the board is gives me that salary, which and I still have some savings and stuff. Like I worked as a school director, I could save compulsively. That's how I was able to afford to bootstrap freeCodeCamp initially. So
Yeah, so tell me about that decision. Tell me about that process, because that must have been, I mean, that must have been difficult, right? You have probably had a family at the time. Like you're like, okay, I have this nice job. It's got benefits, right? I'm a big shot. I'm gonna go over and that little scripting thing I was doing. Well, I'm gonna make a whole business on it, and it's gonna be free, right? This has got to be the sales pitch of a lifetime. How did you make that decision, like even to rationalize it to yourself? Like what pulled you over to do that and to have the faith, the trust, I mean, I guess in yourself that you're going to be able to succeed and do this and convince other people?
Well, vision is seeing the invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly it was very difficult to convince other people that I wasn't insane.
Yeah.
Convince family members, and certainly, my wife and at the time I didn't have kids, but now I've got two newborn, or like a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old. So they came after the big risk was over. Thankfully.
Yeah.
I like to say that if I'd had kids, 2 years older, 2 years earlier, freeCodeCamp wouldn't exist, because there's no way my wife would have been cool with me taking such a dramatic risk. But I think that all progress relies on the irrational person to push things forward.
True.
Quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. But you have to be somewhat irrational. You have to have if you're only doing things that everybody else thinks is totally possible and totally doable, well, why wouldn't they just grab them and do them?
Right.
I was in a very specific position. I had a decade's worth of experience teaching and running schools.
Yeah.
I happened to have a whole lot of money saved up from just doing various side businesses and from living very conservatively as a school director and then as a developer. So I was in a very good position, and I was in San Francisco. I was at the epicenter. I knew that Node.js was exploding. I knew that React was exploding, because every time I went to a hackathon, people were using it. I understood from talking to employers constantly that yes, you could go out and get a developer job without having a 4-year degree in computer science if you knew what to do, and if you knew the right skills, and if you knew the right people. So then it just became the vision looked less and less unrealistic the more I looked at the underlying reality. And that's where you have to be right about something that everybody else thinks you're wrong about. Otherwise, you don't really have an opportunity. There's not an opportunity to go out there and convince people that I'm not going to come up with a good example, but you have to go where there are where there's a lot of opacity, where there is the proverbial blue ocean. It's not the red ocean that has a whole bunch of people fighting in it, but you sail out a little bit farther and you find a place like open source, online, self-paced free technology education. Like that was an area where it was not even close to being fully explored.
Right.
And we had so many things converging. We had more and more people around the world who were getting internet access, but they didn't have a credit card, for example. Like a big chunk of freeCodeCamp's users don't even have a credit card.
Wow.
A lot of them are among the half of the people in the world who live off $2 a day.
Wow.
So we have people in India working through freeCodeCamp on smartphones. We have people working through freeCodeCamp on library computers. We also have lots of people in Silicon Valley whose parents are working at, Intel or Hewlett Packard or Google or Apple, who, their kids are working through freeCodeCamp too. So It became this kind of, equalizing tool in a way, because if we can make it, by virtue of it being open source, so many people can contribute it and make it a really good resource. But at the same time, it's a free resource. So, this is kind of a way of not only making it easier for people without means to get into software development, but also just making sure that when they do get into software development, we can get as many people as possible into it. And again, I'm really big on abundance thinking.
Yeah.
I think so many people are trapped in scarcity thinking, like that person's going to steal my job, right? I think that if you look at the trends, more and more people are needing to code on their job. Just like, in the late 90s, more and more people needed to know how to use a spreadsheet, right?
Right, exactly.
In the 1930s, more and more people needed to know how to drive a car to get a job. In the 1880s, more and more people needed to know how to read and do basic math. So it's like these overlapping kind of industrial revolutions, if you will. Coding is the integral part of the new revolution. And maybe it's not as dramatic as transforming, farms into cities, but it will be a big change. And there's so much opportunity. There's a standing offer for jobs if you understand computer science and programming. Like if you just keep applying, you'll almost certainly get a job after a while. It's a very rapidly growing field, and it's growing worldwide. It's not necessarily constrained to just Silicon Valley like a lot of fields, because the resources you need are in the cloud. It's not localized. And a lot of the costs of starting a business now, Y Combinator, I think, gives people like $40,000 or something like that.
Right, exactly.
To go through Y Combinator, right? And that's supposed to, keep you afloat until you can get your first investment.
Yeah.
So the barriers to entry have dropped so dramatically. And yet programming, I think, is very much like a core skill if you want to create a business and if you don't want to be completely beholden to contract developers and have to micromanage and be kind of a technical project manager to make sure that they build the right thing and that it does what you want and that they build it on time, on budget. So I would encourage everybody to learn to code. And even if you don't end up working as a developer, it'll probably be useful in some other aspect of your career. But if you do want to become a developer, just stick with it and you will be able to get a developer job. It's pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, see, I think a lot of people don't realize that. They don't believe that, what you just said there. I think that's the biggest thing, is they're like, it's never going to happen for me. It's like, they don't have that faith. They're not trusting the process. And I'm glad that you've made that message clear, because it's so true. It's like, if you keep on going, like, your brain will hone in on whatever goal you're trying to achieve. Like, you will succeed. Like, it's going to happen, especially like you said, the field is expanding so fast. There's so many new developer job positions opening up. But yeah, I think a lot of people give up. They don't have the faith to keep on going. I think
learning to code is not a technical challenge. It's a motivational challenge.
Yeah.
And keeping yourself motivated and sticking with a schedule, holding yourself accountable to a schedule and to a timeline and the plans you've made, in the face of, oh, I feel sick, or today I'm just going to take the day off, or, oh, my friend's having this big birthday party. And, like, all those things are going to inevitably come up. Life is always going to get in the way. Now, there are some situations where, you should rightfully stop what you're doing and yield your goals for a moment if you have a family member that gets really sick, or if you have some sort of financial crisis and you don't want to be living out of a cardboard box, right? You want to make sure that your basic needs are attended to. But barring those kinds of things, I think a lot of the reasons people put programming on hold are, unnecessary. Like they're basically excuses in a lot of cases. So just looking at what you're doing and whenever something comes up that's impeding you from your goal, asking, is this really like something that I should put my life on hold for, or is this something that I can just, kind of dive under and keep going?
Yeah, no, that's excellent advice. That's very true. Like too many people get sidelined too easily, and so they never actually reach. They always think there's going to be more time, or they'll have more time later, but it's it's never the case. So what about you? So tell me then, what's your big plan? Like, I mean, obviously, like do you have plans to build another business off of CodeCamp to build? Like, are you happy just like growing this? Like, what's your kind of bigger vision? Because I could see a couple of different roads, right? I mean, I could see you writing some books, like, and having the platform and the audience. I could see you building another business off of this and having that. I could see you just growing CodeCamp to such a massive size that, like you said, the board of directors determines your salary. If you have a company that's 10 times the size of what it is now, you have a pretty big salary. What's kind of your ambition, I guess, at this point in life?
Yeah, my goal is to focus 100% of my time and energy that I'm not focusing on my family on freeCodeCamp. And I think what that looks like is 20-year plan. Yeah, planning long term, doing what all the great visionaries of the 20th century did, thinking decades in advance and trying to extrapolate out what reality is going to be like then. Well, we're going to have all kinds of additional automation. We're going to have all kinds of additional economic pressure as a result of what we're experiencing right now, where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We need to democratize the tools for people to pull themselves up by the proverbial bootstraps. Right. I think that free self-paced education is going to become more and more important. I don't think we should rely on universities to get their act together, so to speak, and become much more dramatically more affordable. I don't think we should rely on the government to get its proverbial act together and suddenly have like universal basic income or something like that. I think that would be great if that was going to happen, but I'm skeptical that it'll happen anytime soon. And in the meantime, people are going to be working at Amazon, running back and forth, putting things on shelves and grabbing things off, and basically nightmare type jobs. Right. So my goal is to just help as many of those people as possible transition up the proverbial skill ladder and get better and better jobs so they can provide for their families and they can have, self-actualizing work rather than just grind work. So freeCodeCamp's 20-year plan is basically to become Wikipedia for structured learning. If you look at the growth trajectory of freeCodeCamp, it's similar to what Wikipedia was doing 3 years in. And we think that technology education is such a vital area. It's the thing that schools don't generally cover very well. That's practically as important as reading and writing and basic math. So we would love to be the de facto place that people just went to continue their education after they finish high school, after they finish college, after they've been in the workforce for a while. And we think we can do that. And then the future won't be you deciding whether you need to go get a master's degree while you're already working full time and you've got kids at home. It'll be, hey, I can just learn a few new skills and get a raise or get a promotion within my company or make a lateral transfer into another company, or not a lateral, but like I can get basically a better job somewhere else. So we want to be kind of the place that people go to learn what they need to learn in order to make those transitions, so that we don't have this crazy, and I won't criticize 4-year degrees too much because I do think that they're very valuable, at least statistically. I wouldn't say drop everything and go back to school if you're, in your mid to late 20s and you don't have a university degree yet. I know tons of people who didn't finish school and are doing much better than the people I know who did finish school. But I do think that master's degrees and the notion of going back as an adult and like dropping everything and getting like an adult MBA or a master's in computer science or something like that when you're already mid-career is kind of insane.
Yeah.
And especially at the price tags that they attach to these.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic that freeCodeCamp in many cases kind of replace the need for going back to get additional formal university training. That's what we'd like to do.
Yeah. No, I'm in full agreement with you on that. It's kind of insane, especially the prices, and then it's just not a good investment today. It's just not a good investment. It was like 100 years ago. I mean, when you didn't have information available at your fingertips, and and universities controlled the knowledge in the world, but not today. Not today, for sure. So, okay, so I still have to ask you though. Because this is what I would be thinking. This is my selfish mind here. Okay, so if I'm in your position, I'm thinking, well, shit, I could have I grew something huge. I could have made a shit ton of money. Like, I'm making a meager salary, getting by. I mean, sure, you're doing what you love, but how do you feel about that? Like, how do you make that choice? Because obviously, like, you put a lot of work, right? Not only a lot of work, you put a lot of money into this. You invested into this company. You put a ton of work into it. You've grown this thing. You've been successful. If you had chose something else that was a for-profit, you would have probably, I would say that you'd probably be as successful. You could be making a lot more money. So how do you like balance that out? Or what do you feel about that? Just an open-ended question, I guess. So.
I mean, I guess I decided a long time ago that, the marginal value of earning a lot of extra money diminishes pretty rapidly. People who make about $80,000 a year, they find that like there's an incremental boost to the money you make beyond that, but it starts to taper off around $80,000 here in the US anyway. I could make a lot of additional personal sacrifices, or I could potentially compromise, on my personal mission of just helping as many people as possible get into tech and into programming, to try to make more money. But for me, as long as I have enough, I'm able to put money into retirement, and I'm able to provide for my kids, and my daughter's going to school, and we have health insurance. Thankfully, there's healthcare.gov, and I'm hopeful that that'll stick around, and that we'll still have public healthcare going forward. But as long as we have those basic needs met, what do I do for fun? I read, I run. It doesn't cost any money. And when I travel, usually it's some conference in another country that's willing to fly me out,
Sure.
And put me up. So it's not like I have to spend a lot of money. What would I spend money on? It's becoming, if you control for the cost of housing, which is spiking in a lot of major cities around the US anyway, and certainly abroad as well. If you control for that, like distorted market, and the fact that real estate is kind of a weird industry where having owned the land for the last 30 years basically guarantees that your kids are going to be really rich. I've got a friend who he lives in Silicon Valley, and his grandfather was a farmer, and he bought like this big stretch of land in the middle of like Palo Alto.
Oh, wow.
Right. And now his family, they make like millions of dollars a year off of, leasing this property, the Apple, right? I mean, it's insane, but getting back to that, if you control for like the cost of real estate being a little out of control and a little wonky, most of our cost of living is actually going down. And the reason for that is the marginal costs of production are going down.
Right.
We're just, if you ask somebody who's living today, if you say, hey, would you give up being middle class to live as royalty back in the year 1850? They're going to say no.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
I would have like all these diseases I had to worry about. I wouldn't have telephones. I wouldn't have internet. I mean, the things you want are pretty cheap. Like you don't even necessarily need a car anymore. You can just Uber everywhere, and it's probably comparable to actually buying a car, unless you live in like a really big kind of urban sprawl. You could probably get away with just renting, instead of actually buying and owning a house. And granted, if you want to live someplace a long time, or if you want to make an investment, it may make sense to buy a house. But for a lot of people, they don't necessarily need a lot of money to live. We've got basically free, unlimited entertainment coming at us, or very inexpensive. You get a Netflix account for $12. You're golden, right? You get like you can buy video games for like $20-$30 on Steam, and bam, like 60 hours of entertainment, right? So we live in an era where like there's not really that much pressure to get super rich. The only reason you get super rich is like almost like you're hedging against having cancer and having your savings wiped out, or you're hedging against somebody like entering your industry and utterly appending it, right? Like it's almost like having money is just like an insurance policy.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting perspective. That's a really good way of looking at it. It's kind of funny too, because I mean, I'm pretty frugal. Like I have a 2005 Toyota Corolla. That's my only car that I drive.
2003 Toyota Corolla over here.
All right.
Toyota Corolla Club.
But I eat once every 2 days, so my food doesn't cost me very much. Right. And even then it's like chicken and rice. Like I guess I go out to eat like as a $10 or $15 meal. So so I don't really need much. Like I can live off of one meal a day, or I know I can perpetually live off of that. And I don't really have extravagant. I mean, I buy technology, but aside from that, I really don't spend a lot of money. I like to live here, near the beach in California. I guess that's my big expense. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. It's like I think a lot of people don't realize how like that trade-off between, to me, it's freedom, right? It's like having the freedom, and I guess a lot of people don't realize that trade-off between what you actually pay for having the lifestyle that you think that you want versus having the freedom to do what you want. And so I can see that more clearly from you, because you're doing what you love. You're doing something that your mission, and you've got the freedom to do that. And so as long as you've got enough to survive and you can do your mission, then yeah, it makes sense to me. So that's cool though. That's awesome. I think a lot of people don't, like I said, they live their whole life and they don't even realize that. So they go work for someone else. They do some job that they hate. They do something that they don't like, and they don't realize that all the best things in life are pretty damn close to free. Especially they're getting cheaper and cheaper, aren't they?
Yeah. So. And certainly family, there's no monetary value associated with just hanging out with your kids. Yeah,
no, that's very true. Cool. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that perspective. So yeah. So tell me, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about that I think a lot of people will be interested in is there a sequential process when someone goes through FreeCodeCamp, right? Because again, a lot of people we talked about this earlier too. They get caught in this maze of like, oh, I need to learn this technology and this and this. And it's like, it's almost like sometimes school has been good for some people because it at least tells you what you need to do. And some of the code camps that have come up, the paid boot camps and stuff like that, have been good because, again, it's like, this is the curriculum, do this, and then, follow this path rather than just going everywhere with the ADHD. What's your, like, do you have like a curriculum, a flow? Like, is there like a sequence, and how long does it take someone to get through FreeCodeCamp and then get to the other end where they're ready to get a job?
Yeah, that's a very important attribute of FreeCodeCamp, is that we have a single monolithic linear curriculum that you work through. And now technically you can jump around all you want. Everything's publicly accessible. You don't like unlock stuff. In fact, you don't even need to be signed in to FreeCodeCamp to access 100% of the content. But we drop you in first with like HTML, CSS, and you just learn how to build, basic static websites using that. Then we introduce JavaScript, and we go pretty deep into algorithms and data structures. Then we cover front-end frameworks. We specifically cover React and Redux, and we touch on jQuery because it's so ubiquitous, and Sass and some other libraries like that. And then we cover data visualization with D3. Then we get into the back-end stuff. We focus on building APIs and microservices, and then doing some security around them, and we cover some basic tools like Helmet.js, Bcrypt, stuff like that, and then we cover testing. So that's basically the curriculum. Like the entire time you're coding in the browser, you can take the CDN links and move the challenges wherever you want, and do them in your local environment if you want. You can even install the FreeCodeCamp curriculum as an NPM package.
Oh, wow.
Into your existing project. We build on that every time somebody makes a change. The point is, you don't have to decide what to learn. We are constantly talking with employers. Thousands of people within the freeCodeCamp community have already gotten their first developer job. So we have a very good idea of what employers are generally looking for. And so we focus on just full stack JavaScript. And our reasoning is, like, a lot of people will get a job doing Ruby on Rails development or doing Python development, but they've worked through our curriculum. And if you know one scripting language really well, it's not that hard to jump over and learn another one. And you talked about this a moment ago when I was interviewing you on freeCodeCamp's channel, that you had gotten a job and then you kind of went and learned a whole bunch of C++ just in time. Right. And once you, like, if you master the fundamentals, it's very easy to pivot to learn new specific tools. So to some extent, we had to kind of like deprogram people from wanting to learn, I need to learn this, this, and this, and have all these skills on my LinkedIn page. Right. Just focus on learning one scripting language really well. Focus on learning the fundamentals that don't change. Linux is very stable, and it's based on Unix, which is like 40 years old. Learning how version control works, learning how the web works, how networks work. These fundamentals, with them, you'll be a generalist, and then you can go out and specialize, because you absolutely want to get as specialized as possible. That's where people make the real money.
Exactly.
Being a world expert on something.
Yeah.
And there are so many different niches within the software development field that everybody can be an expert in some different thing. You remember that old Andy Warhol quote, "In the future, everybody will be famous for 15 minutes." Well, I believe that now it's in the future, everybody will be famous for some extremely nuanced thing. Right. And they'll be famous to a small community.
Yeah. I preach the same message. It's so, like, you can, I always tell people today, I'm like, pick something that you can be number one best in the world at. And they're like, I can't be number one best in the world at. No. If you slice it small enough, right? I mean, maybe it's stacking toothpicks. I don't know what it is, right? But, like, within the programming realm, if you pick it small enough, you can be number one best in the world. You absolutely can, but you just got to pick something of that level, and there'll be a value for it. So I'm glad to hear that you're condoning the same message out there, because I think more people need to realize that that's important, rather than trying to get, like, all of this knowledge, like, that they're not ever going to be able to use, because there's just too much out there now. So
yeah, good luck. Like, JavaScript frameworks change more frequently than a lot of people change their shirts.
Yeah, there was a point, back early in my career, where I was like, okay, I'm pretty good. Like, I know, like, most of the programming languages that are in use today. I know most of the frameworks. I've read just about every classical programming book that there is. And today, there's no way. Like, it's like you can't even be a drop in the bucket. So it's you have to be able to adapt to that, I think. So it's important, and that's why the specialization makes so much more sense than, you got to have the fundamentals. You got to have that broad base, which is good, which is, again, it's so universal. I think people don't realize that also, that there's really no difference. Like, the main, once you know how to program, you can program in any language. It's just adapting the syntax, and then maybe a few of the few things that are slightly different in the paradigm. But yeah, so that's really cool. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. This has been awesome. I got to tell everyone. So the best place, where should they go from here? Should they go to, freecodecamp.com, right? Is that?
Yeah, freecodecamp.com will redirect to freecodecamp.org.
Okay.
If you go there, just create an account, check out the curriculum. I'll send you like an email, generally once a week, that has some links to cool YouTube videos and articles and podcasts, things that I think will be helpful for you as a developer. And go to the freeCodeCamp channel. We have a tremendous number of technical tutorials, and we also have some motivational kind of day in the life of a programmer type videos that you may find helpful. But we're very optimistic about the future of YouTube. And I'll tell you, John, we do a survey every year. And one of the questions on the survey, and we had 20,000 people answer the survey last year. And one of the questions was, do you use YouTube to learn to program? And 75% of people who responded said they used YouTube as a resource for learning the program. It was by far more than the number of people who are using, online course platforms like edX or Coursera, or interactive coding challenges like freeCodeCamp or HackerRank or any of these other places. So we're extremely optimistic about the future of YouTube and helping a lot of people learn to code.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. All right, so go check it out. Go check out freeCodeCamp. You got no excuse now because it's free and it's good. And go subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can catch my interview from earlier on there as well once you subscribe. So make sure you subscribe to freeCodeCamp. And yeah, thanks a lot, Quincy. This is awesome. This has been fun.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
All right, take care, man.
Cheers.